Picture this. You're in a courtroom in Victorian London. It is absolutely jam-packed. People are crammed in shoulder to shoulder, and the air is just electric. Every single eye in that room is locked on one man. He's enormous, and he's standing in the dock at the center of one of the wildest identity mysteries in history. Is he a long-lost aristocrat back from the dead to claim his family's fortune? Or is he maybe the greatest impostor England has ever seen? Let's get into the unbelievable story of the Tichborne Claimant.
Okay, so here's the entire problem laid out right in front of you. On one side, you have the memory of the actual Sir Roger Tichborne, a slender guy, very refined, grew up speaking French. And on the other side, you have the man claiming to be him, a coarse, uneducated butcher from Australia who, get this, weighed more than double what Sir Roger did. It's just absurd. So the real question is, how on earth did anyone believe him?
So to understand how we even got to this crazy situation, we need to rewind the clock. We have to go back and look at the life of the real Sir Roger Tichborne and the tragedy that made him vanish off the face of the earth.
Here's the short version. Back in 1852, Sir Roger is basically sent away by his family for wanting to marry his first cousin. Heartbroken, he decides to travel the world. 2 years later, in 1854, he hops on a ship in Rio called the Bella. The ship sails out into the Atlantic and is never seen again. They find some wreckage, and that's it. Roger is declared dead. A sad end to a young life. Or was it?
And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Because for a solid decade, while pretty much everyone else had accepted his death and moved on, one person absolutely refused to believe it, his mother, Lady Henrietta Tichborne. She was completely convinced that her son was still out there, somewhere, just waiting to be found.
That unwavering belief, that desperate hope, is what opened the door for what happens next. The question is, was this a mother's prayer finally being answered? Or was she about to become the victim of one of the most audacious cons ever attempted?
And then, all the way on the other side of the planet, in Wagga Wagga, Australia of all places, a bankrupt butcher by the name of Thomas Castro starts telling people that, hey, he's actually the long-lost Sir Roger. He claims he survived the shipwreck and has just been living under the radar. It sounds completely insane, but somehow, word of this guy gets all the way back to Roger's mother in England.
And this is the moment that lights the fuse on this whole powder keg. They meet in a Paris hotel room, and despite the massive physical differences, despite the fact that he was a total stranger who didn't remember key details of his own life, Lady Tichborne looked at this man and said, "That's him. That's my son." For her, the search was over.
Just to put this in perspective for you, at his heaviest, the claimant weighed almost 400 pounds. Again, the real Sir Roger was a slim man, around 150 pounds. The difference is staggering. But it didn't matter. His own mother's recognition gave this impossible story the one thing it desperately needed to survive: a shred of legitimacy.
Well, things got complicated. Lady Tichborne died not long after their reunion. And with her gone, the rest of the Tichborne family was having none of it. They basically said, "You are not Sir Roger, and we'll see you in court." This set the stage for a legal battle so epic, it would have the entire country completely captivated.
And when I say epic, I mean it. We're not talking about a quick in-and-out trial. His criminal trial for perjury lasted for an unbelievable 188 days. To this day, it's the longest trial in the history of English law. It was a national obsession. Everyone had an opinion. You know, the evidence was just a complete mess. For the claimant, you had over 100 people who swore on a Bible that he was Sir Roger. He even had a rare, weird physical trait that the real Roger was known to have. But then, for the prosecution, the guy couldn't speak a lick of French, which was Roger's first language. And super suspicious, he made a secret trip to the hometown of Arthur Orton, the very man he was accused of actually being. But then came the knockout blow. The smoking gun. A witness came forward and said that the real Sir Roger had gotten some very specific tattoos on his arm: a cross, a heart, and an anchor. The prosecution demanded the claimant show the court his arm. He did, and it was completely bare. There were no tattoos. It was the one piece of hard physical evidence they couldn't explain away.
After that, the verdict came down fast. The jury declared that he was not Sir Roger Tichborne. He was, in fact, Arthur Orton, a butcher's son from Wapping. He was found guilty of perjury for lying under oath and sentenced to 14 years of hard labor. The great impostor had finally been exposed.
So, case closed, right? The bad guy goes to jail, the family gets justice, and everybody moves on.
Well, you'd be dead wrong, because in a twist nobody saw coming, the story was nowhere near over. In fact, this is where it gets truly bizarre.
Yeah, instead of being seen as a national disgrace, the claimant became a folk hero. The working classes of England didn't see a con man, they saw one of their own getting railroaded by the rich and powerful. They were convinced the trial was a setup, a big conspiracy by the elites to deny a man his rightful inheritance just because he wasn't one of them anymore.
And this wasn't just pub talk either. This grew into a massive political movement. His supporters formed associations, they started a newspaper dedicated to proving his innocence, and, this part is just incredible, they actually managed to get his lawyer, who had been disbarred, elected to Parliament, specifically to fight for his release.
So after serving about 10 years, the claimant gets out of prison. He spends the rest of his days pretty much broke, but he never, ever backed down from his story. He insisted he was Sir Roger until the day he died. And that brings us to the final, absolutely mind-bending irony of this entire saga.
So get this, when he died in 1898, the Tichborne family, for reasons we can only guess at, actually allowed the name on his coffin plate to read Sir Roger Charles Dotty Tichborne. A newspaper at the time put it perfectly. The court spent 2 years and a fortune proving the living man was Arthur Orton. Then, a clerk spent 2 minutes making the dead Orton into Sir Roger Tichborne. It's just unbelievable. So, that's what we're left with. Was this guy a cynical, brilliant fraudster who almost pulled off one of the biggest heists in history? Or was he something else? A man so deep in his own delusion that he actually came to believe his own lie? The evidence points one way, but the story, well, the story shows us that what people choose to believe can sometimes be way more powerful than the truth. So what do you think?